Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to round 6 of PAUDC Mashujaa 2022. My name is Lindsay Bonsu. I'm going to be the chair for this round, and on the panel with me I have...
Hello guys, my name is Joshua Kingdom.
Hello everybody, my name is Ray Allen, panelist for this round.
And I'm Nelson.
Before the round begins, kindly note that all rules of BP apply. Please do well to not badger and be very time conscious. And one last thing, kindly confirm if you can hear the bell. Great. Motion reads, this House prefers Afterlife A over Afterlife B. Prime Minister, the floor is all yours.
My name is Desmond. I'll be the Prime Minister. I'll take a POI from any side of the opposition bench, and I hope they take ours too. So starting in 3, 2, 1. Thomas Hobbes once said, life is short, nasty, and brutish, and if there's the opportunity for human beings to not go through the pain that existence posits, it's only enough that human beings stop to exist. In our world, we'll take the pain of existing for one time and one time only. In their world, they repeat the cycles of human beings going through any sort of pain, any sort of things that happen year in, year out. What's the debate going to look like? To be fair to both sides of the bench, these debates would operate on the best possible impacts where everybody tries to be good, and what those things look like. First extension then is existence is pain. Life is pain. Life is full of strife. You may give the best speeches, people will be biased and give you what you don't want. You will be disappointed. Things like pain of your loved ones dying, things like losing a job, things like having a disease, things like being disappointed are things that even if you are the biggest billionaire on earth, there are things that you may go through, things like losing a loved one, being disappointed, and also the issue of you being alive, being a moral hazard to others. What is this to say? It's simply immoral to be alive, but on our side, we only have that hurt once. Being alive means one critical thing. You take away the chance of another person getting something, and that person also has the hurt of that person being alive just because of you. What is that to say? The moment someone gets first, I get second. When someone takes third, I take fourth. You not existing means there's something I could have gotten that you being alive prevented me from getting. You being alive means that you create things such as climate footsteps. You being alive means that things such as carbon footprints are okay. That may affect someone once. You being alive means you take the opportunity for someone to get something better that they may get. We think it's morally bankrupt, even if you do this, to do this for a cycle of time that's permanent, and you cannot opt out on their side. Something of not opting out is something that they must engage in our world. We opt out and enter a blissful eternity of living peacefully with one another. What is this to say? No amount of money, no amount of any utility that you get from this physical state of being on the rolling stone we call earth would ever be able to salvage for the sort of harms that you get. That is to say, the hurt and the sadness, the unmovable scars that are there when you lose your dear mother, when you lose your dear sister, any sort of relatives you have in any life, and something that's going to be taken away by any sort of advantage that you get by reliving this life one or twice. We think that being able to opt out of these things takes you away from that on a marginal level, because even if you experience this, you only get to experience this one. You don't get to experience it forever. On the other side, we think this is bastardized and this is something that people might not do. Opposition bench is coming to argue for the benefits of being alive, and there's going to be a critical weighing on that side, and the reason why people should opt out of this dangerous scheme as soon as possible. On both sides, if people live very good lives, on our side, it is fiated in the motion to say people go to eternal bliss, they enjoy forever and ever. That is in the motion. On their side, people come alive and they enjoy the benefits of them being good in their life. That is the motion then. Let's come to the benefits. On our side, notice that these benefits are things that are going to be long-lasting. Everybody everybody gets the same, and there are things that may necessarily not go away. On their side, the problem with their side is this: there are things that are beyond your control that can always get you from enjoying the benefits that you want. Firstly, being alive means that things are volatile and uncertain. What is that to say? You never know when the next wave of coronavirus comes that wipes away your wealth. You never know the means through which you lose a lot of money that you gain. People can sabotage you, and the wealth you gain, the things you have, may go away. The people that you may be alive with to experience family relationships may die and go away. Uncontrollable actions, you may make mistakes. It's hard as a human being to not engage in things that are bad. For example, to be alive means that people must do critical things. In case of someone being poor, they must still to survive. They must still to persist when it comes to things that engage your instincts of being alive. Second thing, you may engage in, you may be blackmailed or engage in things you may not want to do just because you're alive, and because the cost of not doing that threatens you. When the situation gets real, people may do what they do not want to do. We think in these instances, on their side, even if you live a good life and come to the next one, because of these things are out of your control, they may necessarily harm your benefits that you may get. The uncertainty and the volatile nature of their benefits are the reason why people should not repeat this scheme. Before I continue, POI.
Do you think that people that harm you in your life deserve to have the same outcome as you?
I don't get that, POI. Again. No, again.
Did you not hear? So do you think that people that harm you in this life deserve to have the same afterlife as you as a moral person?
Yeah, that's why the debate says if you live a good life. Like literally, check the first sentence. That the debate says when you live a good life. That means probably if you don't live a good life, I don't know, read the motion and come and argue a better thing. The second thing then to say on our side is the argument on how people there's no sort of thing that justifies any sort of living again and again. What is this to say? We think that one lifetime is enough. There's nothing that takes any hurts away. There's nothing that can amount to the pain that people accrue in physical life. There's nothing that can amount to the pain of you losing your loved one. There's nothing that amounts to the pain of you being scarred by enough heartbreaks over and over again. Every benefit that they argue on their side are things that cannot take the harm that they posit on our side away. There are things that may necessarily not take these things away, right? Why is very important? You will never benefit from the full harms of being on their side. Even individuals, no matter your status of life, will always go through enough levels of pain. Even if you are black, you may get to experience things like racism over and over again. Even if you are white billionaire, you are going to be plagued by things like black guilt for things that probably your ancestors may have done. This is to say that on every side of them replicating their life again, there are things that will never be commensurate to the harms they get. We see on a moral level of you being alive, taking away the chance of another person leads to a third-party harm that on our side you still do, but you only do once. On their side, you perpetuate it over and over again. The problem becomes this debate is not about someone else, a third party. It's about an individual and a choice to be there. That means the external harms of anyone that hurts you, etc., isn't the debate. The debate is about yourself and the things that you necessarily benefit and get on our side. The second thing then to say on that side of you getting on your side and going through over and over again, right? The thing that we would have to see on our side is that in both instances, right? On our side, the things can be like, on our side, these things are permanent, they can't be taken away. The benefits are things that you enjoy for a very long time. We think when you do good, as the motion says, when you engage in things that are beneficial, this is it. Why is this very true? Because they say in afterlife A, after a life well lived, right? After a life well lived, check the first sentence of the motion, which posits that you can only enjoy this thing if you live a good life. We can't say for the person who lives a bad life where they would go, because the motion doesn't allow us to argue about people who kill you, who murder you. It says when you live a good life, you go there. Don't allow you to come and run a rogue case in the debate. At the end of the day, the thing is simple. Anything that wants to proliferate human life and take it to an extent that they cannot opt out on, that's a very good argument on our side. The issue of not opting out, because on both sides, there's nothing in the motion that proves that once this is made, you can't. This house prefers it starts as first, and people have no idea of how these things happen, right? We say on our side, do these things one. The benefits are not something that can take the harms away. We win from opening governments. Proud to propose.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for that fine speech. The House now recognizes the Leader of Opposition. Hear, hear.
I'll start. You can hear me? Okay. I start in 3, 2, 1. Now, the government presents to us a case in which they want to escape the pain of existence. And what we are going to do, ladies and gentlemen especially, is show you that on our side, we are going to focus on the side that is more pragmatic and beneficial. That is what we want to do, the practical, pragmatic world that we are in and that is beneficial. Because the case that is being presented by the government is a case where they want to escape the pain of existence. That is number one, and that is something we have a problem with because life has both good and bad, current life as we know it. We also want to operate on our side on principles of justice and fairness. That is another thing we will be bringing to this house. You notice that in government's case, we want to raise the question of, do people really operate on fairness if that is the world they prefer? Because, and this has been brought up in a POI, the question is it okay for you to receive the same reward as that, a person who tortures you, should they receive the same reward as that which you get when you're a good person? Now, furthermore, we went on, we want to say that you only miss the sun when it starts to snow, and this further tells us the reason why in a good life you can have both good and bad, because you'll only appreciate the good times because you also get to experience the bad times. We're also going to ask us the question of sustainability. Which of the two worlds is sustainable? And we will prove that our side is more sustainable because their side is just ideal and it is not practical. Now, we will first start with a few things. Now, generally, our side and our belief system promotes development in the four aspects: the social, the political, the economic, and the moral. And these are the questions that we are going to be answering on our side. And this is what makes our case the most legitimate. Now, knowing very well that you're going to be moving from one body to the other, together with the moral rewards from that particular life, causes you to act in a particular way that is more moral. Now, acting in this particular way that is more moral will definitely have effects on life as we know it. Case in point, within the economic arena, we are aware that we have people who have set up themselves in such a way that they disadvantage others economically, either by ensuring that the ones who own all the resources, they don't pay people right, they don't do things correctly, and of course, as a consequence, there ends up being this group of people who are not necessarily, treated fairly. Now, you notice that in our system, because you will realize this is immoral, people will choose not to behave this way because they are aware in the next life there are moral rewards that are coming, and if we behave this way, we will not get them. Therefore, you notice that our belief system immediately has impact economically because people now will behave better economically and be fair. And of course, this immediately starts to affect the social side. The social side is also immediately affected because when people again are aware of all these things and we start to lower the gap that exists economically, socially, the issues of classes and mistreating of lower classes will start to be lowered because you're aware there is another life that is waiting for you and its quality is very much dependent on how you have behaved morally. I will take your POI.
If I was a robber and I've robbed $1 million and I die, when I get back, won't I do the same thing since I'm living under the same conditions? Engage.
Yes. Now, you notice that in our world, what is happening is you're coming in with the moral rewards. You're coming in with the moral rewards of what happened in the previous life. Now, if I can refer him, because this was in one of my points, to the case of, for example, of communities that have the issue of reincarnation, you notice that within a similar system of reincarnation, which is significantly similar to this particular world, people are aware that if they come back in another life, they will experience a particular life. If they are good people, they'll have a better life, and if they are terrible people, they'll have a life that is worse. As a consequence of that, in communities that believe in reincarnation, we find that people want to behave better so that in the next life, they will have a better life. And this is something that we want to focus on. Now, I'll not take your POIs. Have a seat. Now, moving on. The other issue that still comes up socially is the issue of women's rights. You notice that in our world, we said that you're going to have a new body. We did not specify the gender of that body. We did not specify the sex of that body. And we believe that if the reason we prefer our particular world is because in our particular world, there will also be development of social issues, especially within women issues and marginalized and minority groups. Why? Because you are aware that if you move to a new world, you could also end up in the body of the people whose rights you have opposed. Therefore, it would be best from very early not only to be moral, but to have these rights defended so that, in a new world, you could have that body. If you have mistreated people of that particular gender or minority group in this world, it is possible the same could happen to you in the next world. Therefore, you are motivated in this particular world to behave correctly, which will definitely have social and political impact on the rights of women and marginalized groups, which makes us prefer our world. I'll take your POI.
There are things beyond your control that will not allow you, even if you knew to be moral. 5 reasons I proved to you, none of them engaged. Things like people blackmailing you, things like your basic instincts kicking in.
Thank you. Now, these things that you're saying are beyond our control. They are beyond our control because we are thinking about the decisions that people are making. And I want you to realize that within our world, the decisions that people are making are going to be affected by the belief system. Therefore, in our belief system, which highly encourages you to behave morally in order to get the rewards of your moral behavior, suddenly there is control of how people are behaving as a consequence of this, which is very much of great importance. Now, just as government keeps saying issues of they just want blissful souls, they don't tell us what happens to souls that are not moral, souls that are not behaving fairly, souls that are not behaving in justice. And as I have brought this case, you get to see that it is on our side that we are able to affect socially, politically, economically, and my member will even take it further into my deputy will take it even further into the moral state. And you are seeing that we are able to promote fairness and justice. The main issue here that is going to even be discussed by my deputy is the issue of corruption and how our particular beliefs even affect how people behave in terms of how they deal with and approach the issue of corruption. Because you notice that government's case, even if you are corrupt, you still end up in a blissful world without a physical body and with God, even if you're corrupt, even if you're a thief, whatever you are, which is not ideal, which is not pragmatic, which is not fair, and that is not justice. Ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Leader of Opposition, for your fine speech. The Deputy Prime Minister, we are ready when you are.
Can you hear me? Okay. So starting in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, so panel, our case is very simple. If you have the chance to make people avoid pain, do it for them. Any system that allows people to continually exist under that sort of pain, and they believe that they make them be able to appreciate happiness more, I think that is in itself immoral. The first thing we do is to show why on a principle basis our world is one that is justified. We do that on 2 levels, and the second one has some 3 sub-levels. First one, we tell you about the pain of existence, that whichever way or whichever world, existence will still be painful. I.e., even if someone lives a good life and goes into an afterlife where the person is rewarded for their previous good life, that person will still experience a certain sort of pain, such as his loved ones dying out, which will, even if he's rich, will still have a certain level of emotional pain on that person. Things like diseases and all those stuff are things that people cannot escape in that regard. So we think that in their world, there's a constant subjection of people to pain in that regard. In our world, the people who do good are people who are not subjected to that kind of pain anymore because they live an eternal, blissful life where there is no disease, where their loved ones are not dying, or if their loved ones are dying on earth, they probably don't know they are dying and are not able to experience that pain in that regard. The only time they may get to see them are their loved ones joining them to enjoy in that blissful life in that regard. So in our world, that is something you achieve. In their world, we think that something, they live on a nihilist world that they allow people to experience that pain over and over again. The second thing on principle we tell you is on moral opt-out, where another to give you 3 main arguments. First, hurt to others. We tell you that there's a need for people to morally opt out of hurting others in that regard. Why? Because in their world, there's a forced existence where you are continually reincarnated. It means that you continually are going to probably hurt others, even if inadvertently. What does that mean? And why is this likely to be true, first of all? We think this is likely to be true because of the scarcity of resources and also accidents. So the scarcity of resources means that there's never enough for anybody. It means that whenever you are taking, it means someone is losing out at the end of the day. If you are getting a certain job, it means someone is not getting that job in that regard. That continual infliction of pain by others is something that we make people escape. We open a hatch for those people to escape inflicting harm on others. Our world is more morally justified in that regard. But secondly, on constant moral dilemmas, my partner tells you how people constantly go under moral dilemmas, even if they are good, of doing sometimes some bad stuff and all those stuff. So yeah, you may want to give the first to your friend, but that person is losing. You are doing something fair, that is good. However, there's still a certain sort of pain of seeing your friend losing out at the end of the day in a debate because you are the one who gave that person that, that fault in that regard, even though you did good. We make people escape that moral dilemma, even though they are making good decisions, but that moral dilemma and the pain that counts about it is something that we make people escape in that regard. The next thing is on the side of pain and limited capacity. Every day, you see people, especially children in Somalia, hungry, dying. You see wars happening. You have no ability and no capacity to stop those things. You see it happening. Your little widow's mind is one that cannot solve those problems. We think that we make people escape that sort of pain in which they are, they are limited in terms of capacity and feel pain because they can't do anything about the situation and in that regard. The next thing we went on also is on utility. But before that, I would like someone to engage us on the principle. Yeah, so no engagement on the principle. I believe you are probably winning in that regard. It's a very tight case in that regard. Next thing on utility, how we reduce the scope of pain. So on utility, we think that even if you want to judge this debate on pure utility or consequentialist views, our world is one world. That's a time-limited world. It means that people just experience pain for just one world, and that is it. In their world, people continually experience pain in that regard. But even if a person was bad, and that person was bad in that regard, we think that to remove those bad persons, and the motion doesn't say, the info slide doesn't say anything about in our world when people are bad in that regard. What does this mean? It means that probably they vanish from existence in that regard. What does it mean? It means that they are less likely to go and inflict pain to other people in the afterworld in that regard, so reduce the scope of pain. In their world, bad people are reincarnated because of the fact that in the afterworld, where they are not rewarded for their exist under poverty conditions, became the same vagabonds and exact those same pain on other people in that regard, and that is something that has in their world. The next thing is on incentive to do good. We show how in our world there is an incentive to do good. Why? Because people giving all their best efforts just to achieve that afterlife of eternal bliss with God in that regard. In their world, people say, if I do good, I'll just get rewarded, but I'll come and experience pain as well again. It means that there's less incentive. As opposed to in our world, it is certain that you escape pain forever. In your world, even if you do good and you are rewarded, you still experience pain, so that incentive is reduced in that regard. Next thing, let me engage up. But I think before I engage OO's case, let me engage the biggest thing you are likely to get from opposition, something we preempted. So punishment and justice. If people do bad, they should come back to be punished and receive justice in that regard. But I think that case is morally faulty. Why? Because of the potential harm that person you want to punish in the afterlife can suddenly inflict again in the afterlife. We think because you don't know whether that person will be punished, will fully be punished because that person may hurt other people, rob people again to enjoy and all those stuff. We think that there's an epistemic responsibility that they are flouting in that regard. People may likely fall back into a world of crime in the afterlife instead of being punished. Before that, NPI.
We think you oversimplify what it means to be human. Humans are not inherently good or bad. They exist on a spectrum. Some people do bad things but are good people.
Yeah, that's why we analyze incentives and capacity and show why people are more likely to do certain things. So show incentives and capacity when you come on stage. I think that's the debate in that regard. So come and complicate humanity. Yeah, opposition, first thing they say is appreciation of happiness. They say that you are only able to appreciate happiness if you experience pain. But that's something that exists in our world. You live, just that we don't make people experience that pain over and over again. That means that they have to justify why people need to experience pain over and over again just to appreciate the concept of happiness. We think one lifetime is enough in that regard. The next thing they talk about is the incentive for people to do good in order to enjoy a good reincarnation. I think that's their whole case on side opposition. But that does not engage the reality of humanity, i.e., the wicked always enjoy in the world and the righteous always suffer. What does this mean? It means things like people like corrupt politicians always exploiting the righteous and enjoying at their expense in that regard. It means criminals thinking, oh, I can do this again, I can enjoy. In the next life, even if I'm punished, I can still rob and get money in that regard and fix that life of suffering that I may probably suffer in all this stuff. They can always exact some to enjoy in that regard. That is the reality of the world. The righteous never enjoy, and the wicked always enjoy, and the righteous always suffer in that regard. So even though prima facie they may suffer, they may commit crime again to enjoy at the end of the day. What does this mean? It means that people have less incentive to do good, but secondly, they will continually exact time in that regard. On all fronts, we are winning today's debate. Panel, it is simple. If you have the right to make people escape pain, you have the right to prevent people from hurting others again, do so.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister, for your fine speech. Deputy Leader of Opposition, the floor is all yours.
Panel. The government is behaving like politicians that want one opportunity to live in this life, make the mess out of everything, and then die a peaceful death and go to the other world and enjoy life afresh, or rather, enjoy life with God. But this is our response to the case of the government. The afterlife A is a clear representation of the life we live right now. And what does it present? It shows an aspect of sorrow, loss, trauma as a result of the death of a loved one, which is something they fail to realize, that it's not only one person who's in play in this debate, but there are other people who are also involved. When somebody is lost in afterlife A, the impact is felt on generations that are left behind. And these emotions are experienced by the living. It causes instability, not only in familial settings, but also in social settings. That's one. Secondly, there's the aspect of the fear of the unknown in afterlife A on the person who's actually going. Why is this? Because for the lost soul, humans often desire a sense of clarity and direction, but here we only have an ambiguous statement where we are told this person is going to die and is going to go to God, but there is no living body. We are not told exactly what they're going to do. So there is a sense of clarity which could lead to the fear of the unknown. And in that, sit on it. And in the actual ideal world, that lack thereof of direction means there is a cause of fear and trauma on that departing soul. Third, they present a world, or rather, in the actual world where we live in, which is the afterlife, there is no accountability. We live in a world where we say the world is not our home, so no one cares, no one is accountable. Hence, there is no clarity on rewards and consequences that come from their side. This leads to increase in moral decay, political instability, and overall the wild crisis that we witness right now as a result of the afterlife A. The government comes here and presents a case where they talk about best results only, an idealistic, utopic, and non-realistic world, and that in itself, sit on it, makes us question the overall direction where they want to take this debate. First, they talk about things that are outside our control. What we want to respond to that is that actually, if you come to afterlife B, you have control over life because you know the life you live will lead to a moral reward that will then determine the life you live in the next life. So technically, you do have control. There is no aspect of lack of control that comes. They talk about the loss of chances of someone else that should have lived. Well, that doesn't apply because people will still procreate and people die at different times. So, well, while you may feel this world is proceeding, the other one has lost some and there is space for somebody else to go there. Third, they talk about the aspect, Third, what we picked from their side is that they fail to understand that in our world, you will have the knowledge about afterlife. From the info slide, it's been stated that while you're going, everybody will have knowledge of the afterlife as in the status quo. And as such, you will understand that the cycle you'll meet will continue to progress. So when they bring about the point of the pain of losing a loved one, we point out that in as much as you will lose a loved one, you will still have the knowledge that you might have lost a loved one, but it's just a matter of time until you meet them. Finally, when they bring about the aspect of reincarnation, we just want to point out, it was an example used. This is not about reincarnation. Bring it on now.
Now, well, this eternal please set the motion. And secondly, you can only get this after a well-lived life. We can't figure out what bad people do.
Thank you. I get what you're saying. Now, You want us to believe in an idealistic world where there is an eternal, there is an eternal bliss because of the life that you're living that is good. But let's get realistic. You know, this is what we are questioning. The utopism in what you present shows that, yes, there is going to be that eternal bliss, but without you clarifying, we are going to accept that it applies to both the good and the bad. So if somebody who's bad is going to enjoy a good life, what in essence is going on in that? And I will go straight to the case of the opposition, having proven that the government brings no case to the floor. One, what we get from afterlife, be that's a preference for the opposition, is that in the continuity of life, we sustain moral, socio-economic, and political development, not only for the individual, but the society at large. How does this come about? Moral rewards that are being dished out in afterlife B are only dependent on the impact that you have in society in the previous life that you live. So with the knowledge that the life you live right now is going to impact the life that you live tomorrow, the levels of bad behavior, for lack of a better word, will be basic incentives for basic behavior and social inclusion and an overall improvement, not only of the individual's life, but also of society. Secondly, we look at the aspect of delayed gratification that the afterlife air does not present in any way. So, into delayed gratification, in the current world that we live in and the life presented by the government, we live in a world where humans opt for immediate gratification. And that's why we have cases of embezzlement and theft and robbery and everything that they try to bring on. But what happens when we have delayed gratification? When we have delayed gratification, that means the rewards of the life you live right now are going to be presented to you in the life that you live. As humans, we have the thirst, or rather we have the desire for constant reward. And in the world that we present to you, it ensures that everybody is inclusively taken care of, because at the end of the day, you are not going to get your reward or your moral reward in this life, but in the next life that you live. So when we bring about the question of the world that brings the better results for the generations and the individuals, which life gives you the better results? It's in afterworld B. Also, the inhabitants, or rather the inhabitants, will have a rotational cycle, and therefore the choices that you're making now that are affecting you tomorrow are going to be a point of, or rather a basis of justification as to the decision you will make in the world right now. So basically what that means is that in the other world, when you have the same conditions, you will accumulate moral rewards based only on the decisions you made in this world. Third, we look at the aspect of innovation and improvement. They came and talked about diseases and pain, but we tell you, one world is not enough for you to achieve the fullness of the human potential. And what that means then is that the constant cycle of one life to another will then lead to innovation and improvement, because you get to meet different socio-economic conditions, you get to meet different even weather conditions, and then they will determine how you're able to adapt to the next world. So that level of increased knowledge that is offered in Afterlife B will then mean that the knowledge management will be used to improve the different worlds. Just because you're going to live in another world with the same conditions and the same, or rather the moral rewards given to you, it doesn't mean you live the world the same way. Humans are innovative in nature, and so we are going to see an improvement in the lives that people live as we continue to proceed from one generation to another. So what we tell you is that there will be an achievement of full life potential. As the opposition, one life is never enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader of Opposition. We'd like to thank the opening house for a nice debate. We'll now move on to invite the Member of Government. Here. Please do well to take and ask POIs for fair engagement. Thank you.
I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. Afterwards, a very, very messy opening half. We believe it's closing government's responsibility to air out the main issues of the debate and tell you why we win already. We think that there's a very important missing definition, and that is the definition of a good life. We think this is so characteristically important because of the wrong characterization that we get from opening opposition on the issue that when we look at people that categorically perform bad deeds. We think it's just because we don't get a definition from OG for good life. But from CG, we feel as if a person who has lived a good life should be on two fronts. Number one, looking at individual fulfillment and not necessarily individual happiness. We think when we look at individual fulfillment, we're looking at the overall life that this person has lived and what they have set out for themselves, and not compared to individualistic actions that would make them happy. Why do we think this is very important, right? It categorically removes everything that opening opposition talks about when they necessarily say that moral rewards will encourage people to do good in the next life. Why is this, right? Because we believe that if you do a moral action today, it will make you happy, but it won't necessarily make you fulfilled, right? Why is this? Because number one, we feel that people perform moral actions not always for the good. Sometimes we believe that people perform moral actions for political and sometimes even economical agendas. Why do we think this is categorically important? It is important because just because I do a moral action, just because I take across an old lady across the street will not encourage me, right, to necessarily do good when I come back to the same conditions. Let us read the info slide properly, right? It says that you're going to go back to the same conditions. The moral good of escorting a lady across the street would be that she'll know you and she'll probably greet you, right? So if you're going to come back to the same condition, she's still going to greet you. How is that going to benefit your life, Mr. Speaker? We feel that the characterization that we get from opening doesn't exist. I won't engage them. But when you look at the issue of reincarnation, right, we feel that this is not compared to the info slide that we're given and is a wrong characterization of this debate. But also, we heard from the DLO talking about the fact that the impact is felt by the people remaining, right? Two engagements on this. We feel as this exists on both sides, right? Because on both sides, you are going to die, right? But what happens before that, right? You're still going to cause an effect that is going to affect the people before you die. So on both sides, you're going to always have an impact that will be remaining on the people. But secondly, we feel that on that side, right, if I'm going to come to the same conditions, it still will encourage me to do the same things, right, because of the engagement that I've already said. So they can still perform the same actions that have caused the pain and trauma that these guys are trying to alleviate. We think on our side, we're actually alleviating that when these people finally go to that good life, the heaven that we're actually preaching. Why do we think that people are sent to jail for life? It's the same reason that we're trying to encourage in this debate, and that it removes everything that they're talking about. What we bring to you on our closing government is 4 issues. Number 1, the issue of equality. Number 2, human rights. Number 3, greater peace and love in our society, as well as number 4, fulfillment, right? So we feel as if we're getting an issue of equality is because of the fact that when people do good, when people live good lives, when people have impact in the society that is noted by the people in the society, right? And I want to just put this in, that our definition even characterizes irregardless of age. That means that even if a baby is going to die, right, just because their impact in society is the fact that they had brought joy to their society and to their families, that encourages them or enables them to go to a heaven afterwards. I will engage OO.
Thank you. Could you engage on this? How individual happiness, as you say, if it harms other people, how does that translate to a good life for everybody else?
That point doesn't make any sense, ladies and gentlemen, right? So we're talking of the issue of individual fulfillment, not individual happiness, right? These guys are catering for individual happiness, about how their moral actions can actually lead to actually people coming back and being able to continue these moral actions. But they don't provide any justification about what incentivizes them to actually perform these good actions. We don't get that from opening opposition. I'm going to create 2 worlds into, right? We believe on our side we're getting more equality because each and every person, if you do good, you're going to do good, right? If you do good, you're supposed to get good eventually, right? And we believe that it's not going to be fair on this side, the people, to come and reincarnate them because of the experience of re-experiencing death. We think that the difference between re-experiencing a life is to re-experience death multiple times. We believe that death is an experience that should never be experienced multiple times because this will create a traumatizing experience. Imagine if in this life you get a car accident, and in the next life you get shot by a person, and then the next life you die by AIDS, and in the next life, how would that be for the people, ladies and gentlemen? We feel that this is not justified, and we believe that the eternal bliss, right, that we get from our side is a side that can never be engaged on by any of the opposing sides. But secondly, we think that on the definition of bliss, right, we think what is blissful to me, right, is different from blissful to you, right? This means that the general blissfulness of everyone in society will generally be achieved. And we cannot say that blissfulness can be equated to bad acts in the afterlife because of the definition that we've already given you for the metric of a good life. So we're not expecting that or any engagement of that from closing. But secondly, we tell you that accumulated rewards doesn't necessarily lead to a changed behavior. We think that a changed behavior comes from the fact that you are good in nature and that your impacts, societal impacts, are categorically the ones that are seen by the society. So we're not supposed to get that from that other side. But we also think that same conditions equate to same experiences, equate to same actions. We still need to hear from closing opposition how any of the actions that these people are going to achieve is going to be any different because they're going to be born in the same conditions. We think that if you are in the same condition, if you do things the same way, you will never get different changes, right? So we believe this is categorically why it's important, right? But number 4, we think that in the afterlife, we're going to have a blissfulness, which is categorically important in this debate. We believe that on the issue of a behavior versus motivation analysis, we believe that humans always want to strive for a good life and always want to strive for good success and strive for good conditions. This is what will encourage them to live a good life, our definition, which will allow them to live a blissful life in eternity, something that you cannot get in opposition's case. And this is why we categorically win from closing government. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, government member, for your fine speech. Opposition, member of opposition, the floor is all yours.
Sorry, just starting my timer. Okay, it's silent. I'm sorry about this. Beginning my speech in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes, you are a Jew which died in the gas chambers of the Nazi regime, but yes, you must share the same faith as Adolf Hitler. That is the entire case of the government, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't matter whether you did good or you did bad, as long as you can go out there into eternal bliss with the same people which harmed you. Even if you do bad in this world, there should no reward in the first world. That is what the government is saying. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister comes here, ladies and gentlemen, and argues the basic, that the pain of existence must be experienced once. What we find problematic about this case, ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that according to the info slide, ladies and gentlemen, that at the end of it all, you still live with the knowledge of how is it that you live. What does this mean, ladies and gentlemen? It means that people will have the same knowledge about the same life lived, about the same painful existence which they are talking about. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, they have the same painful existence for all of eternity. Therefore, how is that productive according to their world? We're telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if you opt in for well-being, ladies and gentlemen, they have a chance now for a second chance and not have the painful existence. We are saying, ladies and gentlemen, let us not trap them in the same painful existence for all of eternity, because that is what they're advocating for. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Prime Minister comes here, ladies and gentlemen, and tells us that politicians will exploit the righteousness. Now, the problem with that argument, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand that because of what afterlife be means, ladies and gentlemen, it means that the politicians will be punished for those deeds of them exploiting the righteousness, and then the righteousness will now reap the benefits of them being righteousness on the previous life, and that, ladies and gentlemen, there is now a balance, ladies and gentlemen, according to the many lives which are lived, ladies and gentlemen. He also comes here, ladies and gentlemen, and gives a POR, ladies and gentlemen, a POR to our deputy leader of opposition, and he asks this. He says, according to the afterlife A, there is an eternal bliss, and which means that people can still go to heaven or hell. Now, that is the same argument which is followed also by the closing government. The problem with that, ladies and gentlemen, there's a logical flaw according to what this debate is all about. Because in debate, according to what he's talking about and saying that there's still heaven and hell, because you need to understand that for heaven and hell, there is a mechanism to go into there. And that mechanism deals with whether you did good or you did bad. If you did good, you go to where? You go to heaven. And if you did bad, you go to what? You go to hell. Therefore, the entire argument is a logical flaw, because that is what afterlife B is advocating for, that actions and deeds must be what guarantees you, ladies and gentlemen. Because going to heaven, ladies and gentlemen, is a form of what? It is, ladies and gentlemen, a form of a reward, ladies and gentlemen. That's a reward system, and that is what this debate is all about in today's debate. Not taken. Now we go on to the member of government, ladies and gentlemen. Now the member of government basically deals like his entire case by saying, ladies and gentlemen, that people will perform moral actions with an agenda. Now we're saying, ladies and gentlemen, that is still valuable, ladies and gentlemen, because we're saying, yes, if Bill Gates wants to give millions of money to starving children just because they want to claim a moral agenda, we do not mind that, because a lot of people will benefit from that, and that is what this debate is all about. That is the incentive which say it won't exist. We're saying that it's an incentive existing, and a lot of people being helped as a result of that. Now let's go on to some positive matter. Now, before I even go to that, I will take opening.
Sure. It seems you are reading very different info slides. Because in line 1, it says you can only live this thing after living a good life, a life well lived. And of which life can't be in the blissful community, like obviously debating a real debate.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is why also our opening told them that there is Kasim told them that there is a spectrum to what a life well lived means, or a life well lived means. Just because you can do a bad thing and still live a well life. There are some, it depends on the perspective, because some can say that Adolf lived a well life, but that doesn't mean that he should say the same faith as the people which he had, and that is what this debate is all about. That's what a life well lived. Doesn't mean that you've been good throughout, because there's no one able to go throughout. Life exists in the spectrum. Now, coming on to some positive matter. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're telling you that according to the reason we prefer afterlife B over afterlife A is that afterlife B gives you a reward mechanism, ladies and gentlemen. We are telling you that because you do good deeds, you'll be rewarded. There is a benefit in the next world. Your good deeds will not go unpunished. That is one of the sayings which I hate the most. They say good deeds never go unpunished. That is what we're advocating for. I say according to the world, those good deeds, ladies and gentlemen, will go unsubstantiated. You'll get something in return for them, ladies and gentlemen. That is something which we value, ladies and gentlemen. We are telling you that there's an accumulation of moral rewards, ladies and gentlemen, because from the previous life, if you do good, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, you get some rewards. Another thing, ladies and gentlemen, as a matter of extension, which I'm here to tell you as the closing opposition, is that the issue of consequences, ladies and gentlemen. It is important, ladies and gentlemen, because accountability, ladies and gentlemen, in life is very important. Because I'm saying that your own actions, ladies and gentlemen, they should have consequences, ladies and gentlemen. Because if you do shitty deeds, ladies and gentlemen, therefore, you should be given a shitty life afterwards, ladies and gentlemen, and not like an eternal bliss, ladies and gentlemen, that everything is kumbaya according to what they want. We're telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that people will be more conscious about what they say, ladies and gentlemen, but what they do, ladies and gentlemen, because of the virtue of that consequences, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's look this also from the individual perspective themselves, ladies and gentlemen, from the individual lens, ladies and gentlemen. We're telling that people themselves want to achieve net happiness, ladies and gentlemen. What does that mean? It means that people will always want more, a better life. That is what it just means to be a human. That is what life is all about. Now we're saying that the purpose of living, ladies and gentlemen, is that you will want more, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, you will want a better life, ladies and gentlemen. You should never be content about the life which you just like have now. Say, okay, this is it, then what's next, ladies and gentlemen? That's what you're here for today to do, ladies and gentlemen. We're telling you that afterlife B, ladies and gentlemen, provides you an opportunity for a second chance to self-correct, ladies and gentlemen, which is very important. Because you need to understand, just because you're a bad person in this life, ladies and gentlemen, you can do better in the next life, because you will know that there is an alternative and opt-in. Because if you are a criminal, according to the example which they give you, ladies and gentlemen, in this life, a bank robber, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be given a shitty deal in the first place, in the next one, ladies and gentlemen. Then you will know that, okay, now since this is an eternal process, ladies and gentlemen, you will not want to be given shitty hands over and over again. Therefore, you will do these good things in order for you to do what now? In order to get a good life and be done, ladies and gentlemen. Another thing which is very important, ladies and gentlemen, is the issue of social governance, ladies and gentlemen. You need to understand that people inherently need something to believe in, ladies and gentlemen. That's the reason why religion in the first place exists. We're telling you that the idea that just by you doing something good means that you can get a reward in it, for example, like a heaven, which was an afterlife B, is something which people actually need, ladies and gentlemen. That is what afterlife is telling you. Now, imagine, ladies and gentlemen, someone from the poorest of neighborhoods, from the poorest of communities, who gives his last loaf of bread to someone in need, ladies and gentlemen. And then you're telling me that person should just live for poor for the rest of his life and die and then just eat, ladies and gentlemen. No, ladies and gentlemen, there should be another chance for that person to be born as a princess or a queen, ladies and gentlemen. That is what this debate is all about, ladies and gentlemen. A chance for a second life, ladies and gentlemen. Not because there's chances where something is out of your control, whereby you are born in poverty, you're born without money, ladies and gentlemen. Just shouldn't define what your life, ladies and gentlemen. That is what afterlife is all about. A chance for a second life, a second chance, ladies and gentlemen. To tell you that, ladies and gentlemen, okay, the consequences will be met, ladies and gentlemen. There is a reward system, ladies and gentlemen. That is what we're telling you about, ladies and gentlemen. According to your life, ladies and gentlemen, they cannot come here and advocate for afterlife A, and then at the same breath say that, okay, you can still go to heaven or hell, because that is a mechanism which is driven by good or evil, ladies and gentlemen. That is what afterlife B is, ladies and gentlemen. That your actions have consequences and your deeds are the ones which will tell you what is going to happen. I've never been more proud to oppose a motion. With that being said, I thank the House at large. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member of Opposition, for your fine speech. We'll now call on the closing government's whip to finalize the case of the government bench. Here.
Beginning my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, understand that we all do bad things in life, right? Even though we are generally good people. But what opposition bench from OO to CO, what they tell you is that in these bad things that you do, even if you are generally a good person, you'll pay for them in an afterlife, right? Even if you generally do things that are societal, to the general societals are good. We think this is the #1 incentive why it doesn't incentivize good people to do good things in the end of the day, right? We think the main stakeholders that are supposed to also consider here is those people who do good things to the societies. How are we catering them for? What is the life that you are giving them after they die? Why are they important? Is the extension that you get from CG, right? And we think this is what exclusively comes from our side, right? So let's go and engage directly to what CEO tells you, which, #1, we don't think if there is any necessary extension that comes from OO's case, right? So they tell you that a person like, the problem is that they feel like a person like Adolf Hitler will live the same life as a person who generally lived a good life. The info side openly tells you that a well-lived life is what is guaranteeing you to live a blissful life. And that comes, a well-lived life's analysis and its characterization comes exclusively in Eben's speech when he tells you that in 2 things. A well-lived life comes if you have an individual fulfillment and you have a societal impact. And what do you mean by this? We mean by saying that a person like Adolf Hitler, even if we generally think that he's even if there are some good things that he did, but as long as he like in the principle of deontology, he affected the most lives of human beings and generally did bad things, we classify this person as a person who did not live a good life or a well-lived life, because the societal impact that Adolf Hitler to our society does not hold water in that same case, right? So I think CEO's case of Adolf Hitler does not stand, because what he was trying to consider in that case is to bring out a sense where we're going to cater for good people more. But they don't cater for good people more when they tell us that what happens when a good person who did bad deeds is going to live an afterlife. Will those bad deeds come back to him? We think the answer is yes, because that is what the motion presupposes on their side, right? Good people, even if they did bad things, they'll experience bad things even if they are good people, right? We think that's crucial to note, right? Second things, we also need to understand that accountability, the incentive to accountability comes more when a person is incentivized to live a life that is going to be lovely and peaceful afterwards, right? We think the main accountability we think accountability is not like in and of itself a mutual exclusive point, you know, right? Because even if you're alive, as long as you did something bad, some impacts you see them while you're still living, right? But this sometimes doesn't stop you to do those things because you feel like you're going to be individually happy when you do them, right? But when we tell you that, if you're not doing these things, we promise you a life that you're going to live eternally happy. We think this is what people should experience more. I think this is what incentivizes people more than a life where it's not promised what they're going to face afterwards, right? So this is how our extensions then engages on OO's point directly, right? We tell you mainly 4 things. We tell you, #1, the point of differences, right? We tell you that an eternal life is more incentivized for a person to do good things to the society because of, number one, his promise to live an equal life. The fact that you all get new bodies already creates a difference between me and you. Like, even if psychologically, before doing something bad, you always feel bad about the body that you're given in the first place. Then even if in the afterlife, like, the foundation of an afterlife already proves like an inequality that exists between individuals. We think the fact that eternal life gives you all equal souls, we feel like equality is more fulfilled on our side, right? But because when you're going to come back, you might be born a person who doesn't have one leg. That's already like a marginalized life that you're going to live, even if you are essentially a good person, right? That one bad deed that you did while you were still living is going to make you have one leg in the afterlife. We think this is a life that you don't presupposedly understand, right? And you don't presupposedly want to stand on. They didn't prove to us how are those bad things that you are doing, even if you're a good person, are going to be things of a minimal impact in the life that you're going to live after. We think this is crucial. Yes?
On the question of fulfillment, are you aware that we are wired biologically to receive neurochemical reward in the form of dopamine and endorphin, to mention but a few, when we do good? Hence, the issue of fulfillment is addressed.
Yes.
On moral action.
Yes. We think the point that they grade fulfillment as of an individual need. We think if a criminal kills a person, he's going to feel individually fulfilled that he did a bad thing. But it's generally not a good thing. That's why we explained it individually, that an individual fulfillment on our side of the world looks like a person who has caused a societal impact, but at the same time has felt like they're individually fulfilled. So if a person, let's say, helped another person and they felt individually fulfilled, we think that fulfillment is good because the impact that he has made to a society is positive. But when you feel like your individual fulfillment brings a negative impact to a society, let's say it degrades a certain right of an individual, we think that isn't a well-lived life, right? A well-lived life is the correlation that comes with doing a good individual doing a good thing, and that good thing causes a good impact to a society. The correlation between these two causes a well-lived life. That's an analysis that comes from our side, right? And we think that POI then becomes irrelevant on that case. Secondly, we think after living like a life where we're all going to have equal souls and all these themes of differences, they never exist in a world that we present to you, we think it's crucial because then we're going to live a life that's peaceful, right? Because understand, most of the things that we fight about in the world are always caused by the differences that exist between us. Living in a world where we're all equal, we all have equal souls, we think all these burdens that humanity in and of itself brings in the life that we're going to live after are going to be eliminated. So the problems that exist in the world does not exist in a blissful life because those differences are eliminated. That's the analysis that you exclusively get from our side. And we think that's crucial, right? We think secondly, purpose. The issue of purpose is also important because like the fact that you know that you're going to leave this world once, and the fact that you know their time is limited, and the fact that you know afterwards you're going to live a life that does not have all these differences that you experienced in your life becomes more of an incentive to live a purposeful life, yeah? Because imagine you're being told that if you do good things, you're going to live a life where all the problems that you have will no longer exist. And you're told that you're going to live a world where if you did, let's say you insulted a person because they did bad things to you, it's a bad thing that you did to that person. And that action will be repeated in the afterlife. How does that incentivize you to avoid the bad things that you do next if you know that that bad one thing you have done is going to cause a ripple effect the life that you live afterwards? So there isn't any form of incentive structures that you get from the whole opposition bunch to prove that you are going to have a better society if we go with afterlife B, right? And we think that is the problem that exists. How do we ensure a better society, and what's the incentive that these people are offered to have this better society? We think on our engagements you get that, right? We think 3, we need to understand the main stakeholders and how they are catered. We tell you how good people in our world live a better life, but we tell you number 2, the society is the most essential people that we think opposition are ignoring, and that's crucial. Never been so proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Government Whip, for your fine speech. We'll now call on the Opposition Whip to finish up the debate for us. Hear, hear.
Okay, just a disclaimer before I start. None of the views reflected in the speech are my personal views. It's just for the purpose of the debate. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I remember the first time I was able to ride a bicycle without training wheels. I also remember the first time I fell off a bicycle. I remember the first time I passed a test with a distinction. I also remember the first time I failed a test. I remember the first time I won a debate competition, and I also remember the first time I lost in a finals. We tell you what makes life worth living and what makes life sweet is the fact that there is pain and there is happiness. That's what makes us human, and these experiences are what makes us who we are, and it makes life worth living. We think the entire government bent doesn't engage on what it means to be human and what's valuable to us as humans. Instead, what they do is they simplify the human experience. They simplify it down to individuals who are either good or bad. I told you in a POI that you can be neither good nor bad. You can be an individual who's in the middle. You can be someone who's inherently good but does bad actions. Their side does not cater for you for that regard. But moreover, they significantly disadvantage you. I'll take you at 5 minutes. Moreover, lastly, let's deal with closing firstly. They give you this analysis that they give you a criteria of when an individual has lived a good life. They tell you that this individual needs to feel fulfilled and they need to have societal impact, right? Firstly, like this criteria is inherently flawed, but I'll deal with that in a second. Before that, they define individual fulfillment as only being effective, and this comes from like the WIP speech, as only being effective when that individual, please don't badger me, I'll call you. So they define this fulfillment as only being good when it's beneficial to society, right? So we give them a POI that when an individual like just inherently likes to do something that harms people, and that fulfills them, why is that not valuable on their side of the house? So they give us a mechanism which simplified is just like deciding whether an action is good or bad based on society's moral values. What does that look like? That looks like our freaking mechanism. That's what they're doing in their debate. That's what they are arguing for. They give you that criteria. That criteria isn't impactful anyways, right? Moreover, they give you this analysis that like individuals just inherently like aren't good or bad, which is like contradictory to what they say, right? Then they tell us that we don't cater for these bad individuals because we simply disenfranchise them. We tell you that those bad individuals they talk about are unlikely to achieve that eternal happiness under their side anyways because of the criteria that they set up. We tell you at the point at which an individual does a bad action, even though they're inherently good, they don't have an opportunity to fix that action if they're being like killed on the street or they were like just shot dead after they did that action. We tell you they don't have an inherent ability to be able to achieve something better. Moreover, the problem with our entire mechanism is that people are disenfranchised in the next life. Why is this not harmful? We think that even if you disenfranchise in the next life, you'll still have another life to like get better. We think that when you do moral actions, you're just continuously getting better. We think that's a better mechanism, right? I'll take you a look in a bit. We think like more on that, we think under their mechanism, it excludes the majority of individuals, right? We don't think you can quantify individuals just solely based on like their impact, right? Moreover, we think morals are like relatively subjective, right? Opening gives you this case of like how individuals that steal are inherently morally bad, but we think that like in certain instances, like stealing can also be morally good. We think those like nuances need to be taken into consideration in this debate, and it's a pity I'm the last speaker, and I have to clarify this because it's really bad from such a high level debate, right? But we think more on that. Opening specifically is significantly out of this debate for two reasons. One, they don't engage with the nuances of what it means to be an individual, right? We don't think that you're just inherently going to be good your entire aspect of existence. We don't think that individuals just make bad decisions, right? What do you get from our side? You get 3 levels here. Number one, on the society level, why are we able to achieve better impact, right? We think that people are more likely to buy into the mechanism when they, please stop badgering me. We think that they're more likely to buy into this mechanism for 2 reasons. One, they know they're going to get a better outcome, right? What does that outcome look like? Significant benefit in the next life, right? We think this is a good enough incentive for them to actively want to do good deeds, right? Under their mechanism, they realize that, you know what, inherently, if I'm just a good person, even if I do shitty deeds, I'm still going to get like that eternal happiness. So there's no inherent obligation to do good. We think that entire analysis that the WIP tries and blinks just kind of falls flat because it doesn't make sense. We think that incentive only exists when you have 2 mechanisms. You need to have one, an ability to like actually like provide a reward, provide a benefit in the next life, or provide a benefit in the afterlife. And number 2, you need to have like a punishment mechanism as well. We're willing to bite the bullet there and say, yes, individuals who are inherently good but do bad actions will have a significant disadvantage in the next life. But that's fine. You know why? Because when they go into that next life and they have that disadvantage, they're going to realize and do better deeds, and then in the following life, they'll have a better life. We think inherently, in the long run, after like 2 or 3 cycles of this, we're more likely to get a better society. I'll take closing, actually.
So will you want to live a life where you experience all those pains again?
Sure, here's the thing, right? They ignore my entire introduction on why pain is inherently valuable to the human experience. We think that the ability that I'm here in Kenya today, I was able to travel, and that I'm able to debate in this competition, whether or not I lose this competition, it was a valuable experience to me. It was like a useful experience to me, and it gained me like a little bit of happiness, right? So I think even if it's painful for me to use PAUDC, I think I'm still likely to gain a benefit for that, and I would definitely come back again because that's valuable, right? More on that, we think it isn't just about whether or not existence is painful or not. We think that if you're an individual who is significantly wealthy and is born into a family of wealth and in a country where you don't really have a lot of problems, we think you're more likely to live a more fulfilled life. That's just inherently true, right? We think those individuals are likely to get more happiness, and thus they've lived a better life, right? Under their mechanism, these individuals are the only individuals who actually feel fulfilled because the other ones don't have an opportunity to ever live that life. Under our mechanism, we give even the most disenfranchised actor, the individual who was born into poverty, the individual who had to steal for a living, an opportunity to be better, an opportunity to live a better life just based solely on actions. We think their mechanism is inherently flawed. We think their criteria is inherently flawed. Moreover, there's a legitimate inconsistency between not only the two halves of the debate, there's an inconsistency between the closing half between the two speakers themselves. They tell you, in the starting, they tell you that they don't really care about whether an action is good or not. It's just inherently about the impact it has on society. And I think this is the last clash I'm going to close on. We think impact on society needs to be valued on who better gets a more moral society or a society with active benefits. We think we're more likely to do this on our side. Why is that the case? Two things. One, we're more likely to achieve individuals who do good deeds because they want the benefit, the reward that we provide. Secondly, we're more likely to have individuals who avoid bad deeds because they have that punishment mechanism that prevents them from doing that. We think we've significantly proved to you why we are the better half in this debate. Never been prouder to oppose.
Thank you very much, Opposition Whip. Thank you all speakers and team for such an interesting debate. You may now exit and excuse the panel. Please return after 15 minutes. Thank you.